Fuck. Oh my god. Okay. The year is 1993. The Wrongest Trousers is born. He learns to walk, crawl, and jump. His hands become strong enough to hold controllers. He is faced with numerous video games that plague his ability to think rationally without making references. He quickly adapts to shaming and shuts his gob. Then, years later, he cannot hold it all any longer. He makes a YouTube channel
Bomb drop.
and bears it all.
Bomb taken.
It is now 2024, and he wishes to share a message with his subscribers. Video games are epic. I grew up in a very explosive time for video games. A lot of larger franchises had really sunk their claws in, and people in my age range can't shut up about this era of video games. Though the games are held in high regard during this time, they are easy to go back to. I can pick them back up with no problem. The style resurgence for the 80s have come and gone. Those old heads can smile hearing synth again ceaselessly and getting all neon-like. Now it's time for us, slightly younger old heads, to enjoy the 90s and early 2000s. Advancement in pixelation, this ain't no 8-bit bullshit. This is double, nay, quadruple and above. We got slicker animations, beautiful renders of areas with more options on a color palette. How about 3D graphics? Commonly accessible on a home console? Incredible. Wobbly textures, unbelievably short draw distance, fog, crunchy audio. It's definitely an awkward time, but I can't get enough of it. PC games were going wild with it too. While they already had 3D for a time, it kept getting better, and we refused to believe it could get realer than this. The sense of adventure improved when we could traverse larger worlds and walk in any direction. Morrowind blew minds away. There were so many ways you could tackle things, and it felt so immersive. So it makes sense we want to recapture these feelings. And a particular game sought to recapture that 2000s, late 90s PC video game feel. Reviews during its early access period danced around what people compared this game to be. All of it sounded exceptional to me. Delusion, developed by Lovely Hellplace and published by Dread XP, is a love letter to the old 2000-era PC RPG games of yore, like Elder Scrolls, where your abilities could affect your approach to combat, exploration, and dialogue. Delusion starts you off as a prisoner to the Apostatic Union, a sect who's on the search for a woman named Vela Kalos. I think I'm pronouncing that right. You're elected to chase her down as the Union's units are quite low. But first you get to choose your past that led you here, affecting your starting stats and expertise. Whether that be beefing up your might, which affects your attack, defense, and health, guile, which affects your movement speed, jump height, and ability to lockpick, wisdom, which affects your ability to utilize hidden switches, your spellcasting and overall mana pool, or your persona, which reflects your charm and barter, as well as your regeneration abilities. The context for having these as your starting traits are really well written, as near everything else in the game is. All intriguing and really engaging, both dialogue and lore books. It fills out a lot of the background to what's going on in the world, which is very obviously in a bad state. The introduction cutscene gives us some insight, and also has the only voice acting that I've encountered.
Our world is long since shattered, but hope still flickers in our darkest dreams. Few would guess that our fate would be decided upon the Oneric Isles.
Life faced many a trial. People belonged to different religions and real, tangible gods. Conflict was ever present, as you do as a human, I guess. And then the world rend happened, in which the surface world became uninhabitable, and only the floating islands of the Sky Realm remain for the last vestiges of humanity. Lots of events play out, The God War happened between Wickians and the Apostatic Union, and ultimately a ban on God worship was enacted. That pushes us to now. The Apostatic Union, our pals for lifesies, forces our hands into their mess. Vela seeks to create a new age of heaven that our Apostatic Union friends don't like very much. You briefly encounter her before she rapidly departs from her base, which you get to kind of claim as your own. The Union wants you to find her old crew in an attempt to find her and subdue her. Or you can follow her. They let you off your shackles to carve a path of your own, allowing you the option to ally with different factions and overall changing the potential outcome of the world around you, seemingly letting you the option of siding with Vela herself. As far as I can tell from my time with Dread Delusion, your actions absolutely affect the world in unique ways. Stumbling upon quests that give you both a better understanding of the world and outright affecting the landscape or your ability to perceive other languages, for example. I've been really impressed with how events unfold. In the Clockwork Kingdom, I found a board full of missing persons. The area had been heavily afflicted with a curse that turns people into horrifyingly grotesque creatures. So being on this board is not a good sign. But alas, I read one, and it gave me a quest to follow for a missing child. Little did I know that when finding the father, he told me that it was a child he didn't even know if they existed. Oddly enough, something is causing people to forget things. So he knows something is up when he discovers a necklace, which is not associated with anyone that he knows of, except maybe some child. It is a long path, his story. I discovered the mother, who has also forgotten, but gives me a way to access a library of information about the people who lived here, which has corrupted data about this supposed child. Following that path further shows us where they might have last been living. Going there presents us with an outpost which has these creatures in cages. We try to communicate with them with a spark of hope. One of the creatures recognizes the necklaces, maybe, but we can't discern the language it is speaking. A person here guides us to their old lover, who can give us the ability to understand the language, at the cost of a memory. Whatever. Also, they have quite the erotic tale in their bedroom of a woman and an insect man. Like, alright girl, you get it. And that gives us the answer that, yes, this was this lost child. I gave them the necklace, feeling that that was the correct approach, and went back to the father and told him everything. I now have the ability to read some other really important texts, thanks to this side quest. I really appreciate getting a new ability just from following a side quest. Though not every little aspect of exploration leads us to these spectacular pieces of world building. You'll have hidden vampires, crystal-based religions, illusory walls, mixed in with some really disappointing finds. Like finding a hidden pathway or door and reaching to the end of it to find some poison knife throwables, or iron ore. Aspects of the world are kind of uninteresting to explore, most times being a resource item that can be found anywhere or purchased. Mind you, the environment is really impressive visually, giving the old games vibe, but it doesn't help when you get an occasional enemy here or there. And combat with those enemies might be the weakest aspect of this game. For context, I rolled with a guile-focused build, utilizing movement and lockpicking. My damage output isn't ideal, and I don't have any spells that do damage. Might is my lowest stat by far, leaving me with some of the poorest damage output and least defense. On paper, I'm still decimating enemies like nothing. It feels like my own damage is affected primarily by my weapon, as opposed to my stat growth. Charge strikes being the most effective. Their attacks are really easy to parry or sidestep. Relatively easy to understand tells that allow you to hit the block at just the right moment, that allows you to follow up with a heavier hit. And even if I screw up, I don't really ever have an issue because damage towards me is minimal. I want to be challenged by this game, but there's no difficulty scaling, not in the options or anything that I've seen. Maybe this would be affected by a later point in the game. I'll admit this much, that I haven't completed this game in my time with it, but I feel like I understand it enough to be able to articulate my stance on it and put this review out. Though the combat is a bit of a bust to me, I still do enjoy getting around the environment at least. Having a high mobility stat, I'm sprinting through areas with no issue and scaling things that I at times feel like I shouldn't be. It's kind of really rewarding that way, honestly. As long as I have the mana, I can also bust out the spell that increases my movement speed by double, it feels. It's really fun. Then I can also almost seemingly lockpick my way into pretty much every door with, exceptions. I've also hit a weird point where my stamina doesn't deplete from sprinting. I assume that's part of the charm stat, or maybe my guile being high enough. And I don't let myself stay awake long enough in-game to see what the half-max stamina really does to me. To clarify, your max stamina slowly drops as you spend more time out and about. It's kind of like a fatigue. It depletes slowly, and at half of your max, it drops your stats until you rest or drink a potion that replenishes the meter. I haven't really had an issue. Renting a room is very inexpensive, costing anywhere from like 2 to 5 gold. And as you explore, you'll bump into cartographers that will offer you the chance to map out the world as you encounter important locations, marking it down in your map. I will say the map is pretty handy. I just wish it'd auto-magically center each time I pull it up. Trying to figure out where I am in the world is frustrating when I can't figure out where I am on the map even. I'd also really like to be able to zoom in or out of the map, at least, as well as have some function of being able to place map markers. But that last one isn't entirely necessary. I really adore the way this game looks. The PSX style wavy polygons, the texture work, it all blends really well. It almost reminds me of how a DS game looks. I know the intent is PC game circa the 2000s, but something about it hits me in the 2005 DS fat memories way. Maybe it was Dementium the Ward that broke something in my brain. But anyway, it's really viscerally beautiful. Really vibrant colors, and the haunting sky covering it all in a near constant red is wild. Creature design is so good. I love these weird, hairy, bitey mask dudes. I'd even buy a plush of one. And walking around the environments is really immersive. Like these giant mushrooms in the beginning zones are massive, kinda reminding me of Morrowind, but giving them these little laughs initially had me wary. Like someone was sneaking around me, but it's just coming from these. Which, overall, the sound design is excellent. It has some really well executed crunchy audio. It feels old, but it fits well with the rest of the atmosphere. From the spells to the swings of the sword to creatures' vocals. And looking to the music, there's something kind of beautiful about it. It hits notes and leaves them to let you attune to the overworld, letting those sounds of the whole place just have really strong impact. It feels like it's all breathing in harmony with itself. It's dreamlike and charming. It also retains the fantasy elements with its tracks, dancing between delirious and old. It works really well to immerse you into the clockwork machinery of it all. Dread Delusion doesn't have much in the way of options. You can remap all of your keys and do some minor adjustments to the graphics, but nothing really advanced. There's no accessibility options. Navigating menus can be a little bit of a pain. I wish I had more buttons to close the menu, but I'm also a weird guy and like mashing on escape to close menus thanks to my weird choices in Diablo 2 back in the day. This game is also playable with controller innately. You don't have to enable some alternate app besides Steam's own input functionality. That said, it doesn't have any acceleration/smoothing for analog turning, at least it feels like. It seems like it's just raw input. I could be wrong, but that's how it feels. There's also no separated settings for controller in terms of turn speed or inverting the Y-axis. Minor annoyance if you're going back and forth for whatever reason, but that's not a common case, I'd assume. And there's still button remapping for the controller, but not a complete remap. Left stick will always be movement and right stick will always be look. To note, I had only really tested the controller for about half an hour. I primarily played with the keyboard and mouse. Despite some complaints of occasionally empty and fruitless exploration, some minor menu frustrations, lackluster combat, and some weird bugs, like this one where I managed to slip out of the loaded areas. This game is still absolutely worth your time. Runs about $20 US on Steam, and also has an optional bundle of Lunicid along with it, which I strongly recommend checking out, and my video if you want some more information on it. Both games work on Steam Deck, completely verified, so you can go about using a controller to enjoy. Again, I know I haven't finished it. There's an implication that I'll attain an airboat, which is pretty exciting, but I'm still having a blast playing it. There's so much to uncover in it that I'm still constantly engaged. I'm curious how my choices play out and how it all ends up. I doubt my thoughts will change on the game, and if it does, check my comment section. I'll add a follow-up if something particularly incredible or bad shows up. But otherwise, this is an awesome game with a beautiful world. I recommend taking your time with this game. Just really absorb the atmosphere. It's really striking. Check out Dread Delusion. Thanks for watching through this video. There's a lot coming out soon and fast. There's way too many games to cover ground for, so I hope this doesn't get buried behind everything else, and if it does, I wouldn't really be surprised. Hey, people want that Elden Ring and Final Fantasy XIV info, man. I get it. But anyway, if you want to help me out, I still got a Patreon. I'm also thinking of setting up a Ko-fi, I almost said Ko-fi, to just throw a one-time support my way without having to have a running monthly thing going. So keep an eye out for that. I'm thankful for all the support thus far anyways. You're all really good people. Also, keep an eye out for my friends. Schmelnick, another potent video creator who is a powerhouse of content, just pumping so many good videos out. If you have anything that you want to find, he probably has some video on it. Check him out. He's funny. We got BCware, a possible game developer extraordinaire, whom you can smile at his works. Check out his itch page. I'll link it in the description. And my brother, the Empire, a bespoke video gamesman who is working through some videos games. Thanks to Nintendo, maybe his work will be a little bit more difficult going forward. Check him out. Links to all of them in the description. Again, check them out. They're very important people to me. So give some views their way. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm probably going to be on a minor hiatus due to the enormous slew of video games that I don't really want to make videos about. I'm not sure what's next, but keep an eye out for my channel when you're tired of a million good games. See ya.